It has been said that the brain thinks, but the heart knows. Over the last 10 years, my research team and I have gone to great measures to teach people how to sustain both brain and heart coherence. Once you begin to understand the value of how your heart and brain can work together to not only change the health of your body, but to influence your life, it's my hope that you'll begin to apply some of these concepts on a daily basis. In this episode, I want to help you understand how your heart dramatically influences your brain and how brain coherence begins to open the door to your heart. Let's first start with how the brain and the heart both become incoherent. If you remember from previous episodes, coherence represents order, rhythm, synchronization. Incoherence is a lack of order or disintegration. Let's start with the brain. When you react to someone or something in your life, you turn on that primitive nervous system called the fight or flight nervous system. When the body and brain become aroused because of the release of these stress hormones, the rush of adrenaline begins to cause us to become more alert and more aware. The arousal causes us to put our attention on our bodies, on all of the elements in our outer environment. And what is our environment made of? People, objects, things, and places. And when we're under the gun of these stress hormones, we're preoccupied with time. Now, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And in a sense, then, all of our attention and energy is invested into this three-dimensional reality, and we have to play by the rules of Newtonian physics. And as you learned, everything takes time to happen in this three-dimensional world. Under these stress hormones and the arousal of those chemicals, the brain moves into a brainwave state called high beta brainwave patterns. And in this state of survival, we try to control and predict everything in our lives. And in a sense, we shift our attention from one person to another person to another person, to another problem, to another place, to another object or thing. And every one of those elements are already neurologically mapped in our brain. In other words, every person, like your boss, your coworkers, your partner, your kids, your cell phone, your computer, where you work, where you live, where you sleep, every one of those elements has a neurological network in your brain. And when the brain is aroused because of those stress hormones, as we shift our attention to each one of those different elements in our external environment, we activate the associated neurological networks. And when that happens, the brain begins to fire incoherently. When your brain is incoherent, you're incoherent. So then, the hormones of stress cause us to narrow our focus on the danger or the element that's causing the stress reaction. And in a sense, we are narrowing our attention on the material world. So then we begin to experience separation because our senses fool us into believing that we're separate from everyone and everything in our lives. And because of the arousal of these hormones, we become materialists. And the material world then, under the gun of the fight or flight nervous system, in this state, it's not a time to create. It's not a time to open your heart. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to meditate. It's not a time to sit down and be vulnerable. It's a time to run, to fight, or to hide. So then people habituate in this state and they live 70% of the time under the hormones of stress. Now, at the same time, the heart is racing because the person is living in survival. And when the heart is racing, the body is prepared to run, to fight, or to hide. But if you're not running, if you're not fighting, and if you're not hiding or freezing, and you're in a staff meeting or you're in traffic, it's like stepping on the gas pedal as your heart races and stepping on the brake at the exact same time. And when that occurs, when there's incoherence in the brain and the heart, there's less energy in the brain and the heart. Now, every single one of those elements in your external environment is unknown to you because you've experienced them already, and because you've experienced them already, you have a neurological network in the brain. By the same means, if you experienced each one of these elements in your environment, you have a feeling or an emotion associated with them. Now, the stronger the emotion you have to those different elements in your external environment, the more you pay attention to them. So if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, you are giving your vital life force and your power away to all of those elements in your external environment. And in a sense, we have no energy in our inner world for thoughts and feelings to create anything new in our life if all of our attention is on everything known. And over time, we begin to create a connection energetically with everything known in our past, present reality. And they're predicting their future based on the past, and they can't relax into the present moment. If you remember from previous episodes, we have this invisible field of vital life force surrounding us, this invisible field of light and information. And as we respond to some stressor in our lives, we draw from this invisible field of energy and we begin to turn it into chemistry, and the field around our body shrinks. Come more matter, and less energy, more particle, and less wave. And now we are forcing, controlling, predicting, fighting for, manipulating outcomes, competing for them, because we're matter trying to change matter. And the brain stays highly aroused in those high beta brainwave patterns, and the person has an incoherent brain. And now they are disconnected from their dreams. They're disconnected from everyone and everything in their life, and they're relying on something outside of them to take away those feelings that are created inside of them. And if they're waiting for something to change in their life, then they're not creating anything new in their life. Let's talk about the effects of incoherence. When you have two waves that are coming together, and those waves are incoherent or not synchronized, when they begin to interact or interfere with one another, they begin to create a change in energy. In other words, when waves are out of sync or out of order and they begin to interfere, we begin to diminish the amount of energy in the brain and in the heart. When waves are coherent and they're synchronized, as they begin to interfere with one another, over time, they will begin to create bigger waves. The more synchronized the brain is, the more coherent it is, the more coherent the heart is, the higher the amplitudes, the higher the energy in the brain and the heart. So it makes sense then, when there's incoherence in the brain and when there's incoherence in the heart, there's less energy in the brain and the heart. The more coherence that's created in the brain and the heart, the more energy we have in the heart.